Dr. Adrian Vale was no ordinary physicist. He had discovered something terrifying. In a ruined observatory perched high on the spine of a forgotten mountain range, surrounded by rusted satellite dishes and half-buried remnants of Cold War research bunkers, Adrian had built something he told no one about, a machine that should not have existed. He called it the Eidolon. This place was chosen not for convenience, but for isolation. The world had gone quiet here decades ago. The last documented snowfall was in the 1970s. There were no roads, no birds, just wind, rocks, and static. And in that absence, Adrian found clarity. The Eidolon was never meant to move through time like some fantasy. It was meant to see time, not as a thread, but as a whole. Past, present, and future flattened into a single overlapping structure, not linear, not even circular, something far stranger. He hadn't done it for academic recognition. He'd long since walked away from the university system, which dismissed his early papers on temporal non-locality as delusional pseudoscience. He hadn't done it for money either. He was living off a combination of debt, old patents, and the slow deterioration of his once promising life. He did it for one reason. Eleanor, his wife, had died in a car crash. The reports were clear. The photos were clearer. A deer, a curve in the road, a snapped neck, death on impact. Except for one impossible detail. She had died 12 days before they met. Yet Adrian remembered her as vividly as he remembered his own name. He remembered the smell of her favorite tea, the sound of her voice reciting Rilke in bed, her habit of humming when she read quantum field equations. He remembered the tension in her jaw when she was about to cry, the way she stared too long at the moon. He remembered loving her, fighting with her, making up, and making love. All of it. Her absence was unbearable because it shouldn't have been possible. Her memories were entangled in his consciousness, like roots buried in concrete. But the official documents were inarguable. The hospital, the coroner, the photographs. He went to her parents, who barely acknowledged him, acting as if she had never spoken of him. He found one photograph of them together, but it had changed. His face was blurred. Reality was cracking at the seams. And Adrian, losing sleep, losing weight, losing his grip, came to a single conclusion. It wasn't he who was broken. It was the world. So he built the machine. Years passed. He scavenged military surplus auctions for parts, scoured abandoned labs for forgotten tech, and taught himself how to code neural feedback interfaces that could handle multi-dimensional input. He soldered circuits by candlelight and carved runes, yes, runes into copper plates, because the math had started to resemble language. Old language. Forgotten tongues from civilizations that never existed. His dreams were fevered. His hands shook when he worked. Sometimes he felt like he was being guided. He began to lose his distinction between waking and sleeping. Often, he would wake up to pages filled with formulas he didn't remember writing or recordings of himself speaking in tongues. He would stand in front of mirrors, not recognizing the eyes staring back. He started hearing whispers beneath the hum of electrical equipment, voices saying fragments of things like, "Again, and you know this already." At first, he thought it was sleep deprivation. Later, he suspected it was contact. And then, one night, as snow began to fall in a place where snow hadn't touched ground in decades, the Eidolon was complete. He activated it with a whisper. The dome filled with a static hum, soft at first and rising like a choir of insects. The stars outside stopped blinking. The air grew thick, charged with something ancient and electric. Adrian sat in the chair, the observer's throne. He had come to call it and placed the neural crown on his head. Reality split. He didn't see time stretch out like a road. He saw every possible now. The Eidolon showed him the branches. No, not even branches. Fractals. A bloom of realities spiraling infinitely. He saw one version of himself standing at the altar with Eleanor, holding her hands, promising her forever. He saw another weeping in an asylum. Another was screaming as he burned in a lab explosion. Another was floating, disembodied, above an ocean of black stars. One was made of glass. One was not human at all. He saw himself pulling the lever that activated the machine. Then another version, frantically trying to stop him. Then another, slashing his own throat to end the recursion. Then another, laughing maniacally as the cosmos folded inward. He understood then. Time wasn't linear. It wasn't even circular. It was a Mobius strip of awareness, a loop with a twist, where beginnings and endings blurred. Identity was a convenient illusion, a trick the conscious mind played to compartmentalize infinity. Adrian Vale wasn't real. He was a lens, a mask, a vessel for perception. His memories were scaffolding for awareness to stand on. In the deepest folds of the Eidolon, he remembered being a moth fluttering near a dying star. Then a king marches into war. Then a lonely old woman was watching dust fall through a sunbeam. Then a planet, and a whisper, then nothing. He remembered being all things, because he was all things. Awareness itself, disembodied, eternal, fragmented. He was the observer and the observed, the question and the answer, the hand reaching and the void it reached into. He was the thought of being before language could describe it. The Eidolon burned away the last lie. There was no sequence, no linearity, no real identity. There was only experience. Experience wearing 1,000 masks. And then came the worst part. He had done this before, thousands of times. Every time he built the machine. Every time he reached this truth. Every time he unraveled. And every time he forgot. In the core of the machine, where perception collapsed inward into a singularity of thought, he saw a phrase pulsing like a signal from a deeper reality. You are not in the universe. You are the dream the universe is having about itself. It wasn't poetry. It wasn't a metaphor. It was a warning. Existence wasn't a structure. It was a reflection. Not a place, but a process. The cosmos was a singular being, fragmented into countless sentient slivers, each pretending to be a person, a creature, a star, a thought. All of them were seeking something they couldn't name, to remember. But remembering came with a price. Because when a piece did remember, like Adrian just had, the weight of total awareness shattered it. No wonder we forget. He reached for the kill switch. Or maybe he didn't. Maybe another version of him did. Maybe none of this ever happened, or it always did. He looked down at his hand. It was small. A child's hand. He was standing in a park. Trees rustled. Children laughed. A red balloon slipped from his fingers and floated into the sky. He was crying, but he didn't know why. Somewhere, from a place that wasn't a place, a voice that wasn't a voice whispered, "You've always been here. You've always been everyone." The loop had restarted, and Adrian Vale had forgotten. Again,